Yeah.
Hi, we're here at Tony and Tambra Smith's in Rockcastle County, and we're going to read a story from Tony's book, These Old Hills. He's talking about Christmas way back in, maybe we're thinking the early 1920s with his dad and living in a log cabin on Dry Fork in Jackson County.
Mm-hmm.
Talking about Christmas and relatives from Ohio coming down to visit and bring some goodies. So one year, about 8 or 9 days before Christmas, Uncle Fred sent your dad a letter, and in the letter it said that Anna, Flora, and himself would be coming down 3 or 4 days before Christmas, like always. Well, they waited, and at long last, the day came. Now, the weather was cold, because it was way up in December. It was on one Saturday morning. Your dad and all the other kids were sitting right here in front of this very fireplace, and the snow just pouring down. It had been snowing all day long, all night long. It was all downhearted and lonesome because it had snowed so much. They did not know if Uncle Fred and their sisters could make it through the snow or not. Even in the summertime, you could not get a car no closer than a mile because the road was so bad. Well, then, just all at once, the old black and tan hound dog began to bark. Your dad and all the other kids went running to the door to see what the dog was barking at. And when they opened the door, the wind was blowing so hard that the door pushed them back in the house for a few seconds. Then they all ran out into the yard so they could see just what the dog had seen. It was snowing so hard they could hardly see, but after a few seconds went by one, they slowly began to go back into the house, and because it was getting so cold, your dad was the last one to walk back into the house. Just as he turned around to close the door, he raised his head to take one last look down the old wagon road that went through the long, narrow bottoms. There in the distance, it looked as though he could see 2 or 3 people coming up the holler walking. He said, "Look, you all, I believe I can see some people coming." All the kids went running to the windows and the door to see. As the people got closer and closer to the house, your dad could tell that it was 3 people, and they all had big, long sacks on their backs. He said to the kids, "It looks like 3 people with sacks." About this time, little Flossie began running around and around in small circles, and she was saying, "It's Anna, Flora, and Uncle Fred. I just know it is. We are going to have us a good Christmas after all. I just know it." Your dad, Lethe, and Jake had a good laugh. At long last, they had made their way up the old wagon road, and as they came walking through the barn, your dad said to the kids, "That one walking out in front is Anna. I would know them long legs and that red hair waving anywhere." When they made it up to the yard, they all went running out of this old house to meet them. And oh, what a good time they had all together. When they all got in the house by the fireplace, Uncle Fred said, "Charlie, these girls has about walked me to death up this holler. You know, Charlie, when one has lived in Ohio for a long time, as I have, now this walking is hard to do because I'm not used to doing much walking anymore." Your dad said, "But we still do a lot of walking around here, Uncle Fred." Anna and Flora began getting into the long sacks that they had brought with them. They began to get stuff out to cook in the big black kettle that hung over the fireplace. It was not too long until they had a good big dinner cooked up. They all sat at the long wooden table that their dad had made many years ago. They all eat until they were about busted. Okay, I'll read some more here. Just press the red button.